Perfect. Okay, so I will be brief. Mike gave a great presentation. I think it built on Mike McClelland and Jeremy's. I think the key on any of these is plan for the worst, hope for the best. Our role in this was to look at the data on the after action of the eclipse. Jeremy had several good slides showing the eclipse. One of the things that we have done probably for the last 4 or 5 years in Indiana is we do after actions on every significant snowstorm. So this was a pretty easy technique to scale at a national level. In fact, we've done that. So I think Mike McClelland's point earlier that communication and multi-state coordination on hurricanes is important. So when we looked at this, we tried to look at this from a multi-state perspective. And Gerard and Rahul are going to give some really nice examples on that. A couple of the key message I want to kind of get out up front on this is our role on this was Mike and colleagues were working on the planning and coordination of agencies. We were there looking at the data. In general, whether you're looking at a winter storm, a hurricane, or an eclipse, traffic congestion, you worry about location, severity, and duration. So the techniques that you're going to see here that we used with connected vehicle data scale equally well to large winter events and hurricanes. Probably the interesting thing was that Indiana was a destination state, partly because of the advertisement, partly because of the weather. It turned out the Indianapolis Motor Speedway was the largest designated viewing site in the world. But Jeremy, as you know, Mike, as you know, relatively speaking, this was a small crowd by Indianapolis Motor Speedway standards, so relatively small blip. But there was nice weather and good turnout, good for the Indiana economy. So just to kind of give you some images from the ITS cameras, the roadway cameras in Indiana, it did get dark quite quickly. It is pretty amazing when you look at those roadway cameras over 2 minutes, how quick they got dark. And with that, I am the warm-up act for what I think is going to be the cool content that Gerard and Rahul are going to share.
Okay, in this next section, we'll cover basically the 3 data sources that we use for the analysis to monitor traffic, connected vehicles, roadside ITS cameras, and then commercial vehicle dash cams. So diving right into it, the first data set is connected trucks from OmniTrack. So for this data set, we get about 200 million drives a day with speed, geolocation, heading, and timestamp, and then a reporting frequency of mostly 10 seconds, which is really good for this kind of monitoring. Just showing a 1-minute snapshot of the data from Tuesday, January 30th for nationwide, and you can see just using 1 minute of truck data, most of the major roadways light up, as do the major metropolitan areas, Indianapolis here, Chicago, and Dallas. One of the things you'll be seeing in this presentation is a spatiotemporal traffic speed heat map. So this is just a quick video showing individual trajectories of connected vehicles passing through a work zone on I-69 from mile marker 245 to 260, going northbound. So every line here represents a connected vehicle. And if you see the dot that's moving along, that's the current position of the vehicle, and it is colored by the speed at which it's traveling. So less than 45 miles per hour congested speeds and free flow speeds in green, as shown over here. So you can see clearly speed slowing down as vehicles enter the work zone. So just to give you a brief overview of what heat maps look like and how to read them. So mile markers on the y-axis, 245 to 260, and then time of day on the x-axis, so from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Another graphic we'll see along with the heat map on the top is the congestion ticker. So the congestion ticker is basically a collapsed version of the heat map showing minute by minute what's the number of miles for this section of roadway that were congested. So we're comparing here I-70 westbound about 40 miles, and it sees peak congestion of 7.7 miles. So this is how the section looks on the heat map when it's congested, pink, red, and yellow speeds less than 45. And this is how that congestion built up starting about 1 p.m. ending at 5 p.m. The penetration, so the connected truck data, roughly we see about 1 to 5% of sample penetration. Again, at night, we see the connected trucks really fill in the data gaps when we have very few passenger vehicles traveling. That's when connected trucks are very valuable. So you see these early morning hours is when the penetration is very high. The last data set we used is commercial vehicle dash cam images from Vision. So just showing an example here, and I'll let Rahul go into a deep dive on how we use these images. But this is a brief map that shows a dash cam coverage across the US. So Rahul, correct me if I'm wrong, but during peak weekday hours, we see about 30,000 vehicles active sending these images. So again, similar to the connected trucks, we see these dash cam images have really good coverage on all major roadways and in major areas. And finally is the Indiana ITS cameras. Darcy showed a brief preview of this, but this is what the roadside ITS cameras look like. And this is a view from one of them. Over 750 cameras statewide operated by INDOT. And we capture images from these maybe every 2 to 3 minutes, which allows us to do these after actions really quickly. In the interest of time, I'll go quick, but this is a congestion ticker for nationwide interstate miles operating below 45 miles per hour. So this is about 98,000 directional miles of roadway. If you see all 50 states, excluding Alaska, we see the congestion on Eclipse Day was pretty much lower than the last 2 Mondays. So because of the 50 states and the totality only passing through 13 states, we don't get to tease out the insights. But now when we dive into only the states that the eclipse passed through, so the same 13 states on the path, from Texas all the way through Maine, we see the peak congestion on the day of the eclipse was definitely higher than the last 2 Mondays. And then very quick summary tabulated from Texas to Maine, the number of miles of interstate within that state, which are within the path of totality, and then how congestion changed between the prior 2 Mondays and the day of the eclipse, as well as how mile hours changed. So interesting to note here is Texas and Oklahoma are the 2 states which saw a reduction in congestion, while most of the other states saw an increase. And I'm highlighting 4 states here, which we'll go into detail later on, but just showing a brief ticker for Texas. Again, lower congestion on the day of the eclipse than the last 2 Mondays. And Indiana on the day of the eclipse, Monday, April 8, we see about 175 miles congested, higher than the last 2 Mondays. And the 4 states that I highlighted, Texas, Arkansas, Indiana, and Ohio. So if you see this overlay plot, the red line is what congestion looked like on the day of the eclipse by hour of day. And the blue and green lines are for the previous 2 Mondays. So Texas, again, the peak was lower than the past 2 Mondays, but the other 3, we see the peaks almost doubling or more than doubling for the day of the eclipse. So just a little bit of foreshadowing on what we'll be doing, what Rahul will be covering for his deep dive into the selected states. So over to you, Rahul.
Thank you, Jarash. What I'm going to do is take a little deeper dive into heat maps, what Darcy talked about earlier, location, duration, and severity. We showed some of the high-level statewide statistics earlier, but how these graphics, particularly heat map, let us talk about specific scenarios. So once again, the horizontal axis is time of the day, the vertical axis is mile marker, and the colors are green is good, traffic is flowing at good speed on interstate, and pink and reds are lower speeds. So here it's showing 8 days in Indiana, interstate I-65 border to border, so 262 miles of the interstate. Top one is northbound, so all the traffic, the individual vehicles are going from bottom to top. Bottom one is southbound, so vehicles are going from top to bottom. Now we see the last day is the eclipse day, so 1 week prior to eclipse and eclipse day. The traffic on the interstate pretty much flowing, free flow, green conditions, except for that 110 mile marker Indianapolis area where the speeds are slowing down a little bit. Now we come to the eclipse day. Now I'm going to zoom down to the 3 days, the day of eclipse, the day before, and the day after, and look at that location, severity, and impact. Now the day before, we start seeing some of the inbound traffic coming in from Chicago. So we started seeing impact mid-afternoon, late evening hours, those pink stripes, vehicles coming down, having those conditions. Similarly, on northbound also, we saw some impact of potential traffic coming from Louisville area, and a 2-hour highway closure shown by that white stripe near mile marker 20. Mike earlier talked about national highway closure. So some of these graphics help us identify some of that closure looking at scale. Coming to the day of the eclipse, the black dotted lines show the path of totality. So potentially everyone trying to get inside that path of totality to look at the totality. Just before the eclipse, 3 p.m. time in Indiana, we saw inbound traffic both from northbound and southbound direction. At the time of totality, I think congestion was at its lowest. We see no congested traffic anywhere. And right after the totality, we start seeing the outbound traffic growing. Now in the I-65 northbound, we saw impact about 40 miles from 3 p.m. until 10 p.m. That area highlighted there. One of the things that we noticed was, which was unexpected, that impact the next day, the day after the eclipse. A lot of the people that stayed the night on both the nights, the Sunday and Monday night, were trying to check out on Tuesday, and that caused that congestion on I-65 while they were going out probably towards Chicago area. One key thing was the inbound traffic. The congestion was seen up until the edge of the totality. So everyone was just trying to get inside and not really wanting or bothered about getting to the center of those totality areas. And in terms of time of totality, I think the center had about 3 to 4 minutes, whereas the edge had totality lasted for about 2 to 2.5 minutes. So not much of a difference. However, when the right after the totality, the outbound traffic sort of originated from the center of that path. Everyone that was coming in for different events, trying to leave right after. Now I'm going to step through a few other select interstate. This is I-14 Arkansas. We see about 60-mile impact in westbound post totality for about 6 hours, shown by that call out there. Some impact northbound, not as significant. This is I-55 in Missouri, 80-mile impact in northbound from 3 to up until 11 midnight after totality. I-64 in Illinois, 30-mile impact coming in. I-24 in Kentucky, about 40 miles impact for 6 hours. And a little bit of impact the day after. The next thing I'm going to show is some of the vehicle dash camera images that we were able to pull together for specific situational awareness. As Mike mentioned, several advisory on those messaging boards, no parking on ramps, notifications to motorists. However, we did see some stops on shoulders, ramps, not ideal. And these are the images as the truck is going through, we're able to get those dash cams. So one particular case was exit 188 in southbound direction. And this is just outside the path of totality. So our hypothesis was people that got caught in that traffic trying to get towards the path of, inside the totality had to bail out last minute, park on the shoulders and ramp. So I'm going to step through. We see the ramp being completely occupied with parked vehicles all the way across that exit ramp. I'm going to step through probably not an ideal parking location for the truck, and as well as that vehicle that was right behind. Driver seen opening the door right there, probably very dangerous situation. So a lot of the awareness was circulated earlier, but probably stricter advisory, particularly closer to around the border of those paths is critical. And some more images of parked vehicles on the shoulder, viewing the totality just before. With that, I'm gonna bring back the summary table. Before that, all of the graphics, the numbers that showed in this presentation are right now under peer review process. If you would like a copy of that sort of published paper, please put your email address in the chat, and once it's published, we'll be sending it out to everyone that's want to take a look at these. I'm going to bring back the table that summarized sort of impact for all of the states along the path of totality. 2 states, Texas and Oklahoma, saw decrease. 3 other states saw moderate change in the congested mile hours, and the rest of the states saw increase in the mile hours. So on the states that saw the increase, we observed about 67% increase in the total mile hours congested on the eclipse day. With that, I think that's the end of the presentation. We'll hand it back to Jeremy for any questions that popped up in the chat.
Sure thing. If you guys could stop sharing so I could take over. Yeah, if there's any questions, Adam, perhaps you could field those to the group.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a couple questions come in. The first is, any idea why peak congestion was lower in Texas? Was it due to cloud cover that day?
The potential reasons that we thought was, yes, cloud cover was probably the key one that people decided to go to other sections of the states. As well as the advisory coming into the eclipse from work from home, from businesses, potential traffic anticipated, and advisory shared by agencies probably prohibited some of those motorists coming out on the eclipse day.
Thank you. And then, did you see any accidents or fatalities reported based on, motorists making stops on shoulders or any other abnormal behavior?
Nothing significant that we came across.
But I think just to chime in, that I think Rahul had some good photos on that. I think one of the lessons learned here is we were a little surprised how much the side of the interstate was used for ad hoc viewing picnic areas.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Yeah, that's the rest of the questions. We have one more that came in the chat box. Just about more on the crashes. Was there a difference from the norm and the number of roadway crashes that contributed to any of the changes?
I don't think we've run those numbers. One day is really hard to pull something out. We don't have access to all the other states. I can't say anything remarkable. Mike Nichols, I might volley that over to him. He might have, usually you wait 60 days or so to run those numbers so all the reports come in. So over to Mike Nichols to see if he's got anything to add.
Talking to law enforcement, specifically state police, and then Tippecanoe County Sheriff's Department, which is located up near Lafayette, which was along I-65. It's Purdue's located in West Lafayette. Talking to them, serious crashes were minimal. We didn't have any of those. There were some rear end crashes or lesser crashes, that more property damage type things. Overall numbers, though, I think were down. And I kind of equate it to winter weather. When you get, an inch of snow, everybody's still driving like an idiot. When you get 6 inches of snow and the awareness is out there and everybody's talking about this bad weather, or in this case, everybody's talking about the eclipse, then I think that awareness, it's kind of like at the forefront of people's thoughts. So just my personal observation, I guess.